I understand why people say they are not very happy with the brakes.
If you are in the market today looking for a bike between 2.5 to 3 lakhs, the Apache RTX 300 is definitely worth considering.
It felt a little underwhelming because of the responsiveness of the engine. Fuck, that was scary. I felt like there is no stopping power. I think this is where the KTMs have done a better job with regards to.
Here are 5 things that we hate about this motorcycle. Number 1, the inconsistency of the powertrain.
Did you see the way I was able to flick that bike and get it back up? Why do I get the feeling that I'll end up buying this bike?
If you are in the market today looking for a bike, especially an adventure, between 2.5 to 3 lakhs, I don't think there are a lot of options that offer this level of tech and this amount of power and fun. Within this budget range, the Apache RTX 300 is definitely worth considering. Today we'll go through the various aspects of this bike, starting from the engine, the gearbox, we'll talk about the brakes, we'll see how this handles in cities and on highways, and we will wrap up the video with 5 things that we love and hate about this motorcycle. Let's talk about the engine. This bike generates about 36 bhp at 9000 rpm and about 28.5 Newton meters around 7000 rpm. The power that is generated at higher rpm actually shows you that this bike has a very linear character and all the power is coming up top. Turning on the data logger. Okay, signal strength is good. We'll start logging things. Let's do an acceleration test. Fairly responsive engine and a fairly peppy engine. And while you're taking a test ride, please ensure that you are riding in the tour mode, because if you ride in any other mode, this can be a little underwhelming or overwhelming, and that is the extent to which you see a difference in the modes. Oh yeah, bike is really fast, man. We'll get to 4th gear and we will roll on and see how the torque delivery is. Very, very good. And there is a lot of power up top as well. See, I'm not doing a very low speed here. I'm fairly fast, and even at these speeds there is decent amount of power that is available. I think we have an answer for the best tourer under 3 lakhs now. So we spoke about the engine. The engine has decent torque on offer, both at lower RPMs and decent torque at higher RPMs as well. In terms of the throttle response, the response is very good, especially in the touring mode. Now it's time to talk about the gearbox, and as usual we'll start off with our constant speed tests at different gears. First gear, 4000 rpm equals 20 kph. Second gear, 4000 rpm equals 30 kph. Fourth gear, 4000 rpm, 45 kph. Sixth gear, 4000 rpm, 61 kph. At lower gears, what we saw was each shift in gear, you got a 10 kph delta. But as in when you got to higher gears, we saw that the change in speed was about 5 to 8 kph. So taller ratios and taller speed change at lower gears. As you get to higher gears, the change in speed reduces. Let me think of why they would have done that.
A few moments later.
Smaller change in speeds at higher gears means more torque. Okay, so that is why they have done that. Interesting. So you saw what the gearing is like. Now next, let's try and understand what the effect of this is. And how do we do that? We will do clutchless upshifts and downshifts. Clutchless. Superb. Oh, what a treat, what a treat. I'm not kidding, this is such a fun bike to ride. Not sure if you are able to see a smile on my face right now, but I really love this bike. Let's also look at how the downshifts will feel like. 6th gear, 90 kph.
gradually go on brakes, downshift to 5th, 4th, 3rd. So what we see is, if you're in part throttle and if you're trying to upshift without the clutch, it feels very comfortable. But let's say you're higher than 50% throttle, you see a slight jumpy behavior. And to be honest, the downshifts are very predictable. It actually shows you that you have to downshift. That's a nice feature.
And the clutch is also very light, and it comes with adjustable levers both for the clutch and for the brakes. In terms of gearbox, the first, second and third gear have a linear progression in terms of ratios. The 4th, 5th and 6th gears are slightly closely spaced. This is to ensure that you have higher torque at higher gears, and there is good amount of pull and good speeds that you can pick up at lower gears.
Now we spoke about the engine. I think it's time to talk about the brakes. Coast is clear. Fuck, that was scary. I was expecting a bit more deceleration, but I'm not sure if ABS kicked in. I think there's something off with the calibration when I go on the brakes and when I'm trying to downshift. If I go on the brakes and if I'm trying to downshift, I think I might have to use the clutch. Hard braking. That was better. Much better. I think I understand why people say they are not very happy with the brakes. If you grab a handful, like I did, and we had our rumble strip patch there, I think at that point ABS did kick in. And because of that, I felt like there was no stopping power. See that? There's a lot of stopping power. It is just that I think the ABS is a little intrusive. So the front brakes have good stopping power. The relationship with the front brakes is like, you have to be a commanding master and tell that, hey, look, I'm in charge. And if you're trying to be a companion to this brakes, I don't think it will listen to you.
The bike has a 320mm front rotor with a radially mounted caliper. Now, radially mounted calipers are supposed to deliver good bite, and that definitely shows up when riding. The moment you touch the brake, the bike feels very sensitive and it dives forward. And in terms of stopping power, there is very good stopping power.
Now coming to the rear brakes, I think the surface of the pedal is large enough to give you the feedback that you need. I could feel exactly what the brakes were doing. I don't think I've said that on any other bike in recent times. Very good feedback, but just like on any other big bike, not enough stopping power with the rear.
The rear has a 240mm rotor with an axially mounted caliper that you would see on any other bike. In terms of stopping power, there isn't enough stopping power on the rear brakes, just like any other big bike. But one thing to notice, the size of the brake lever ensures that you can get enough feedback, and modulation can also be controlled very well. Good job over here.
There's a car there. If I have to brake, so the bike dives before it can decelerate. And the deceleration is also very progressive. When such is the case, you'll have to be a little preemptive on the brakes, but something that you'll get used to. We spoke about the engine, the gearbox and the brakes. The next thing to check out is the handling.
Before we move on to the next section, I'd like to share something with you. It took a lot of effort to bring this video in front of you, and 90% of our viewers have not subscribed to our channel. If you are one of them, please do subscribe. It will cost you nothing, but it will keep us motivated to bring the best automotive content in front of you. On with the video.
Check this out. I'm at 100 right now, and the kind of response it offers is insane. No wonder people love this. Did you see the way I was able to flick that bike and get it back up? Generally TVS bikes handle well, but the only problem I had with most TVS bikes is the lack of steering feedback. But they've fixed that as well on this. Why do I get the feeling that I'll end up buying this bike? Let's start off with the handling trials with our low speed stability. There is a bit of steering corrections. And one thing that is very interesting is, even though there are steering corrections, because of the width of the handlebar, the bike feels very light. It's not like I have to put a lot of effort to turn that big front wheel. And if I reduce the speed, the engine struggles slightly. I'll have to clutch in if I have to reduce the speed. Single lane change is where you're trying to avoid an obstacle. Let's do a single lane change here. We'll go to the right, stabilize. Now let's move back to the left. Man, this is such a big bike, but you can still play around with it like a toy. See how the bike will pick up here. Saw that change in direction? So the bike is very nimble, very agile. When I tried to do single lane change at those speeds, the bike rolled first, it gradually moved in, and then I was able to pick it up. There was good feedback from the steering. The bike felt stable, but the change in direction took a bit of time. The bike rolled well, but it did not turn as well as it rolled. Now let's do a double lane change. Double lane change is indicative of when you would overtake something. Let's do this. We'll go to the right, stabilize, come back. We'll do that again. We'll go to the right, stabilize, come back again. So what I see is the effort required is just as much as the single lane change, and it is very predictable. So I'd give it a 7 out of 10. In terms of the roll and the stability feel, when I rolled to the right, then I flicked to the left, I saw that the front was moving away from me slightly. I think that could be because of the profile of the tire. What I see is a very easy bike to overtake, but you should be okay with leaning the bike a bit more than what you would do on other bikes. So the bike rolls well, but when it comes to shifting lanes and moving direction, you'll have to be a little more patient. So in handling, you'll have to treat this bike with a little more compassion. You can't be a strict teacher. You'll have to be like, Macha, let's slowly go to that lane and come back. So this bike is like those lazy, talented employee who'll need a bit of push when it comes to handling. Let's talk about comfort. The bike offers long travel suspensions both on the front and the rear. And let me actuate and show you how it works. This is for the front. You see how comfortable and bouncy that is? The same happens when you brake. The moment you touch the lever, the bike has a tendency to fall forward. But if you are going on rough patches and if there is a harder hit coming in from the ground, then the suspensions offer a lot more stiffness and energy, and you can hit potholes and rumble strips at fairly high speeds. I'll get off and show you how it works on the rear. So there is a bit of wind blast and a bit of buffeting. I can feel it here. I think I can figure out a trick to show you that. So we'll hit the pothole here. Very good. Fairly decent in taking up the hit. Let's look at the comfort here. Dives a little. So with the current setting, what I see is this setting is capable of taking in a lot of harsher inputs, and it is not bouncy. If you're expecting this to be bouncy, it is not. Considering the responsiveness on offer, the comfort on this bike has to be tuned in this way. You remember how Himalayan is a plush vehicle and KTM is very stiff? This is in between those. It's neither too stiff nor too plush. So the highway comfort on this bike is actually very good. The engine is responsive at the required cruising speeds. Cruising on this bike between 100 to 120 is very peaceful. So on those broken patches, the bike is fairly comfortable. Let's take this pothole. So definitely this bike is capable of taking a lot of beating. Let's take it off-road. I was not expecting the front to move so much when I went over that stone. Feels fairly comfortable, nothing to complain. Can I stand and ride? Yes, of course. And when I'm standing, I can also grip the seat well. That is not something that I could say on a couple of vehicles that I reviewed recently. But this is very comfortable. Downshift to first gear. Downshift was also very easy considering the foot peg position. Let's go up now. Let's go up this trail. Nice.
This is a nice trail to ride.
As you can see, for somebody who's 5'6", a vertically challenged person like myself can reach on both sides. Although I'll have to tiptoe, it is fairly manageable. And this bike, in most of the modes, except for urban or rain, has enough torque on offer at very low RPMs, and this will ensure that managing this bike within the city is fairly comfortable. In terms of rider triangle, the position of the foot peg is placed in a way where you can pick yourself up very easily. The shape of the tank is such that there is a lot of volume to grip, and this can help you with standing and riding and when you're cornering. And the position of the handlebar and the seat is such that this is built for highway cruising.
Definitely a tall bike, man. Very light to handle in the traffic. You'll see that you will have to tiptoe slightly. You'll get used to it. You'll build that skill where you have one foot on the foot peg. With the other foot, you will be able to reach better. And standing up is also very easy. Very less effort on the knees if I have to pick myself up. So one thing I observed is the reach is okay, but the moment you get into urban setting, at lower speeds, you're expecting some amount of torque. Now that torque is missing at very low speeds. Because of that, you'll end up trying to balance the bike a lot more. In the touring and rally mode, that torque at very low RPM, when I'm at standstill, it actually improved the quality of balance to a very good extent. I think they've taken the ease of riding from the lower category of bikes and mixed it with the benefits that you would get from a bigger segment bike. When I first rode the RTX a couple of months back, it felt a little underwhelming because of the responsiveness of the engine. But this is not one of those bikes which you will ride once and then be like, yeah, it put a smile on my face, I'll go buy it. No. I totally get why people say you'll have to take a longer test ride on this bike. And it has to be a mix of highway and city commute. Unless you do both, I don't think you'll appreciate what this bike is capable of. The fact that this bike has quick shifter on all the models is a very good value addition. And I understand why potential Xpulse buyers also want to know about the RTX. You'll see that people riding this very fast, and a majority of that confidence is coming from the bike, and the amount of value for money that this bike is amazing, man.
Henny's Garage was started with an intent to help racers go faster around the racetrack. We want to use the expertise that we have built there to help you buy better products. If you are in the market looking to buy a motorcycle or a car, you can reach out to us on WhatsApp. The link is in the description. The bike is available in 3 variants: the base, the top, and the build to order. I don't know how the mid variant is called the top variant here. Anyways, the base variant costs you about 2.57 lakhs on road in Bengaluru. The top variant, which is the middle variant, will cost you around 2.77 lakhs on road. And the build to order, which is this variant right here, costs you around 3.03 lakhs. The bike gives you a mileage of 28 to 30 kmpl in the city and between 33 to 35 kmpl on the highways.
I think we have a winner for the best tourer under 3 lakhs. Well, I've still not ridden the KTM Adventure 250 and the Suzuki V-Storm yet. If you want me to review that as well, let me know in the comment section. I'm getting used to the drivability of this bike now. But tell you what, I think this bike can do with a bit more refinement. It's almost there. I think this is where the KTMs have done a better job with regards to quick shifter. This is definitely not bad. There are times like that back there where I'm trying to go on throttle, but it felt like the bike had asthma.
Here are 5 things we love about this motorcycle. Number 1, the design. Number 2, the premium feel on this bike. Number 3, the thermal management. Number 4, the headlamps. Number 5, value for money. Took me about 10 to 15 minutes to compile the list of things I hate, but here it goes. Here are 5 things that we hate about this motorcycle. Number 1, the inconsistency of the powertrain. Number 2, the weight of this bike. Number 3, the reach for vertically challenged people. Number 4, the buffeting on this bike. Number 5, the vibrations at slightly higher RPMs.